All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So we knew that this day was going to happen this year. It's home stretch time for first baseman Pete Alonso as he's on the cusp of some history. Who knew that when Darryl Strawberry left the Mets, the New York Mets, after the 1990 season, at his club record for home runs would still be in place 35 years later. But that is the case as Strawberry's 252 homers with the Mets is still the team's all-time record. But Alonso is on the cusp of saying otherwise as he just hit 5 home runs on the Mets' recent 7-game road trip, which included a pair of long balls yesterday in Denver against the Colorado Rockies. And in going yard twice yesterday, Alonso surpassed former Mets third baseman David Wright for second place on the franchise's all-time home run list. So now, as Alonso is sitting on 243 career homers, he's 9 behind tying Strawberry and 10 from becoming the Mets' all-time leader in that category. And for Alonso, it's been a rapid journey to this point. In 2019, Alonso became the first Mets player in franchise history to hit 50 home runs in a season, 53 to be exact, while also that year he became the first position player for the Mets to be named as the National League's Rookie of the Year. Also in that time, you had Dwight Gooden, a pitcher, being named as the NL Rookie of the Year in 2014, and then 30 years after that, Jacob deGrom. But nonetheless, you look at what Alonso has done with the Mets. He has 3 of the top 4 home run seasons in Mets franchise history, while he's also the only player in club history to have multiple 40 plus home run seasons, 3 to be exact. And he's looking like this is about to be his 4th right here. So you look at Pete Alonso this season. He's leading the Mets in all of the major categories. Batting average 301, home run 17, runs batted in 61. He also is the team leader in hits. And right now, Alonso is having the season that many people expected him to have last year when he was set to hit free agency. And of course, things did not work out for Pete Alonso, did not have the big season at the plate. He ended up returning to the Mets on a smaller short-term deal, but he can opt out after the season, and he looks like he's going to once again hit free agency this coming winter. Lord Andenfor, what is going on? And good evening to you as well, my good friend. So, big question right here. Will Pete cash in this offseason? I absolutely, truly think so. Okay, you look at him, he's having a big time season. He's hitting better for average at the plate, which is a big thing. And he's taken being a better all around player to heart. I think Pete Alonso, and I said this last night, I think Pete Alonso is also benefiting, and I'm not here to knock him for that. I think he's benefiting hitting behind Juan Soto. You have a situation, I've talked about this with Juan Soto. Teams are not pitching to him. Everything they're pitching, they're throwing a lot of low pitches to him. You know, Soto is leading the NL in walks, and Alonso is benefiting from it because he's getting better pitches to hit. But nonetheless, of all of Pete Alonso's home runs so far for the Mets, of course, the most memorable one did not come in the regular season. It came in the postseason last year. You go back to game number 3 of the wild card round against the Milwaukee Brewers. The Mets were facing elimination, down 2 runs in the ninth inning. Pete Alonso was not having a good series to that point. And of course, he hit the shot heard around Queens. And of course, the game wasn't in Queens, it was in Milwaukee. But nonetheless, his 3-run home run was a catalyst for the Mets in their comeback win in the ninth inning against the Brewers. And of course, they advanced to the LDS. And of course, New York went all the way to the NLCS. But nonetheless, uh, what can we expect, or when can we expect Alonso rather to break Strawberry's record? It's really tough to put, a timeline on these things. But and especially with home run hitters like Pete Alonso because they hit him in bunches. So we could see a stretch where Pete might have 4 home runs this week alone. You never know. He could also go into a slump again. You don't know. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be an event for the Mets and Alonso, especially if the game is at City Field. And I say that because Mets team owner Steve Cohen would definitely break out all of the bells and whistles if that was the case. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him have Darryl Strawberry himself in attendance. And of course, Darryl Strawberry wouldn't mind making a couple of public appearances for the Mets, especially if the Mets are footing the bill for him. But nonetheless, if Alonso were to break the record before the All Star game, I would not be surprised to see the Mets and Alonso publicly, possibly rather, knock out a long term deal during the break. It's one of those. The Mets allowed Alonso to go to free agency last year. This thing didn't get solved until spring training had started, which was surprising. But nonetheless, I don't think that both parties want that around this time around. But we got to wait and see what happens. Okay, Alonso, nonetheless, is rapidly becoming one of the best players in the Mets franchise history. And I know that some people are going to look at this and say, well, their home run record is 252 in comparison, to some teams who the all-time leader in home runs are it's in the 300s or 400s, in some cases the 500. I totally get it. Okay, but if you peel back the surface and look at the history of the Mets, they're an organization that has been known for their pitching. And aside from that, they've also been an organization that has not been known to develop young hitting talent. Also, they give up on young hitting talent and trade them away. So I think that's part of the reason why we've seen some of their offensive numbers skewed, if you will, over the years. The Mets have never had a guy even hit for 2,000 hits during their career. And of course, the Mets history goes all the way back to 1962. But again, with all of that, a lot of miscues in the front office and ownership over the years. And it looks like things are finally getting turned around for New York under their current team owner, Steve Cohen. So you ask yourself, what is next for Alonso and the Mets? I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I think Alonso is looking at the bigger picture. You have a Mets team that's in first place right now. They got a taste of the postseason last year, and they're looking to get back and do possibly bigger and better things. We don't know. Um, I think Alonso wants to be with the Mets long term, and I think the Mets want Alonso back. And I think that was clear during the off season. It's just one of those things they clearly could not agree on his price. Um, I think it gets done, and I think it gets done earlier, quicker, and quieter as far as getting Pete Alonso a long term deal. Like I said before, maybe it gets hammered out over the All Star break. We've got to wait and see. Uh, but nonetheless, let's see what happens in that category. But I do think Pete Alonso's long term future is with the Mets. He has an opportunity to really rewrite some of the offensive record books if he stays with that club. The team wants him. I think Pete wants to be there, and of course, the fans love him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think that love is really going to come out once he gets to the point, um, if he's able to break that record. Yeah, he's only 30, and I think that's something that went against him last year in free agency because it was one of those where if he was possibly seeking like a 6 or 7 or 8 year deal, teams are more and more reluctant in baseball to give guys those type of deals once they get around the age of 30. But nonetheless, I do think he's going to get a handsome offer from the New York Mets over the winter. And again, once you have the ability to say, hey, I'm the franchise's all time leader in a certain category, like home runs, I think you could write your own ticket, especially in a big city like New York. But nonetheless, fine folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports. Like I always say, you give me that follow, I'll give you that follow right back. And that goes the same for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 pounds of sports knowledge. Also, you can check me out on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Lord and for, as always, I thank you for chiming in. I hope that you are enjoying the NBA Finals so far. I keep telling people I think this is going to be a tremendous series, and I hope people simply don't sleep on it. That's just my 2 cents there. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.